Have you ever wondered if there is something that was said so long ago that never reached your ears the way it should have? Something that has the power to completely transform your life, bringing peace, clarity, and purpose? Why do you feel like you're carrying burdens that seem to have no solution? Why does it seem so difficult to find true answers to the deepest questions of existence? There is a truth that has been left out, but now it's time to reveal it. Today, I'm going to tell you what no one has told you before. I'm going to open the door to an understanding that could change the way you live, think, and feel. And if you stay until the end, I promise you that what will be revealed will not only touch your heart, but it will show you a path that you can take from now on. My dear, have you ever stopped to think how the most precious things in life can be right in front of us, and yet go unnoticed? It's like you're looking for something that has always been in your hands, but you've never noticed it. This is the truth about life, existence, and what lies at the heart of being. And this truth is not something distant or reserved for the few. It is accessible to everyone without exception. Much of what you think you understand may have been presented in a confusing or even distorted manner. During the time I walked among you, I taught about the nature of existence, but I saw how misinterpretations soon began to grow. It was never my intention to create division or confusion. I came to enlighten, to show that each of you has the ability to connect to something greater, a power that doesn't come from outside, but from what is eternal within you. What I have to share with you today is not something you have to blindly accept, but something you can directly experience. It's like opening your eyes to see something that has always been there. The reality I experienced on Earth was a world full of beliefs that brought fear and guilt, but the true essence of existence is love and freedom. This is the revelation I have tried so hard to convey. You may have felt that life often seems like a series of difficulties and burdens to carry. But I tell you, this is not how the Father planned it. Life is not a punishment, nor is it a path destined for suffering. There is a greater harmony that surrounds everything, and when you begin to see it, even the most difficult moments become lighter. It's not about escaping challenges, but living them with a new awareness. This new way of seeing transforms fear into trust, conflict into peace. It is the key to understanding what is true and eternal, allowing you to leave behind the misinterpretations that imprison you. And as you begin to see, a new understanding of what seems invisible will emerge. For what is hidden, my dear, is not meant to stay hidden. It's meant to be discovered. When I went into the desert, it was a call I felt within me. It wasn't an escape, but a search for answers that no person or tradition could give me. Perhaps you've experienced something similar. That moment when the heart asks for silence, a space to listen to something deeper than the noise of the world. That's exactly what I experienced during those 6 weeks. In the desert, I was in total solitude. Every day was a battle against the impulses of the ego, the part of us that screams for security, for control, for approval. I came face to face with these desires and realized how they could dominate me if I allowed them to. It was an intense process, but each day the voice of the ego became weaker and a new clarity emerged. I understood that true power lies not in conquering the outside world, but in mastering myself. There I understood the essence of what governs all existence, the energy that comes from love. Not a limited, conditional love, but a living, infinite force that creates and sustains all that exists. This energy is not separate from you. On the contrary, it flows through every cell of your body, in every thought. It was this discovery that changed the way I lived and gave me the authority to teach about the kingdom that is within everyone. Can you imagine what it was like to come out of the desert with this new awareness? Every person I met, every situation I faced, I saw in a different way. Fear no longer had a place because I understood that everything that exists is supported by this creative power. And the same is true for you. No matter how great the challenge, this energy is always there, just waiting for you to recognize it. And when I went back to the towns and villages and shared what I had learned, many were confused. They asked, "How can you say that the kingdom of God is within us? Where is the temple? Where is the proof? But the real proof is not in the eyes, but in the experience. When you begin to live with this understanding, something changes in you. It's not a knowledge you acquire from the outside, but a truth that awakens from within. The same power I found in the desert is within your reach. It doesn't require complex conditions or rituals, just a willingness to silence the ego and listen to what lies beyond it. And so what at first seemed like a mystery becomes a certainty that guides every step. For when you recognize this energy within you, everything around you begins to take on new meaning. Have you ever noticed how the things you fear the most seem to appear in your life in strange ways? Perhaps you've felt that the more you try to avoid something, the closer it seems to get. This is no coincidence, and I can tell you that this dynamic has everything to do with your consciousness. What you feed inside, whether with fear or desire, is what takes shape in the world around you. While I was in the desert, I understood that consciousness is not just a reflection of thoughts, but the very cause of what we experience. Everything begins in the mind, in what you believe and in what you feel most deeply. If your heart is full of worry, doubt, or resentment, that is what you send out into the world as energy, and that energy returns as experiences that reflect exactly what you sent out. I'm not saying that you want bad things for yourself, far from it. But when fear dominates your thoughts, it becomes as powerful as a wish. Every time you worry excessively and imagine the worst, you are feeding that possibility. And the universe, which is like a big mirror, reflects back what you project most strongly. This is why many people carry burdens they don't understand how they created. But this reality is also your greatest liberation. For just as fear has the power to attract what you don't want, trust and love can completely transform your life. When you shift the focus of your consciousness by choosing thoughts and feelings that reflect what you want, peace, abundance, harmony, you begin to create a reality that manifests these qualities. This takes practice and, above all, vigilance about the thoughts you allow to occupy your mind. People often operate on autopilot, letting fear, anger, or guilt drive their decisions and actions. But you have the power to change this. Every moment is a new opportunity to direct your consciousness, to choose a thought that reflects the life you want to build. And when you make that choice, something extraordinary happens. Not only does your outer reality begin to change, but you realize that you are becoming a different person on the inside. What was once fear becomes serenity, and what seemed like a cycle of endless problems gives way to unexpected opportunities. For deep down, everything you need is already in your hands, or rather, in your consciousness. My dear, perhaps you've looked for peace in so many places. Perhaps you thought it would come with success, security, or even the absence of problems. But allow me to tell you a truth that may surprise you. The peace you so desperately seek is not outside of you. It never has been. It is something that comes from within, like a peaceful river that has always been there, but has been obscured by the worries of the world. True peace doesn't depend on the circumstances around you. It is not affected by what happens every day, nor by the actions of other people. When I was among you, I noticed that many lived in constant anxiety, trying to control the uncontrollable, seeking in external things what can only be found in the depths of the heart. This kind of search, though common, only feeds the feeling of emptiness, for it's like trying to fill a jar with a hole in the bottom. The key to peace lies in understanding your true nature. You are not defined by your mistakes, your fears, or your limitations. You are part of something much greater, a divine energy that sustains all that exists. When you reconnect with this truth, when you silence the noise of your worries and begin to listen to the still voice within, peace becomes something natural. It's not something you achieve, but something you allow to arise. Finding this peace, however, requires detachment. We often hold on to our worries as if letting go is dangerous. But I say, letting go is not weakness, it's freedom. Letting go is trusting that the Father, this power that is in everything, is taking care of you in ways that you may not be able to understand at the moment. When you let go, you realize that you don't have to carry the world alone, and that trust makes room for peace. And as this peace takes hold of your being, it begins to be reflected in everything around you. Situations that once seemed threatening lose their power because you now see life through different eyes. And this inner change affects not only you, but those around you. For the peace you find is not just yours. It's like a light that spreads, bringing calm and hope to those who cross your path. So, my dear, I ask you, what have you been holding on to that you can now let go of? For it is in that act of trust that true peace begins to blossom. And from there, something even more transformative emerges. Have you ever noticed how often the greatest pain comes not from what is happening around us, but from how we react to those situations? The suffering that seems inevitable at certain moments in life actually has a deeper origin. It comes from the ego, the part of us that seeks control, validation, and superiority. But there is a way to break this cycle. The ego is a natural mechanism, something we all have. It helps us to individuate, to have an identity. But when it becomes the center of our decisions and emotions, it begins to cause separation, fear, and pain. While I lived among you, I saw how the ego fed divisions, pride, and resentment. Many tried to prove that they were right, better, or more worthy, but it only created more conflict, both within themselves and with others. Overcoming the suffering created by the ego does not mean rejecting who you are, but rather recognizing that you are not just this limited personality. Inside you is something much greater, a divine essence free of fear and limitation. As you begin to identify more with this essence and less with the needs of the ego, you will find that many of the conflicts that seemed so important begin to lose their power. The secret lies in surrender. Not a passive surrender, but an active choice not to feed the thoughts and emotions born of the ego. It's a choice to respond calmly rather than angrily, to forgive rather than hold a grudge, to love rather than compete. And each time you make these choices, you weaken the power of the ego and strengthen the connection to your divine essence. This transformation doesn't happen all at once, but in small steps. Each time you silence the voice of ego and choose love, something within you changes. And over time, the pain that the ego creates begins to disappear, giving way to a peace that doesn't depend on anything external. This peace is not a distant idea. It's something you can experience right now in the simple act of taking a deep breath and letting go of what you no longer need to carry. As the ego loses its grip, you begin to live in a lighter, truer way. And this new way of living is not only a personal liberation, but also an opening to something even greater. Perhaps you think that Christ consciousness is something distant, reserved for a few or for times gone by. But let me tell you, this consciousness is not something separate from you. It is a living force that pulsates within every being, a force that dwells silently within, waiting only for you to recognize it and allow it to express itself. During my time on earth, many marveled at the healings and miracles, but what they saw was not exclusive. Everything I accomplished was the result of this direct connection with the source of all life. This awareness, which I call Christ consciousness, is not my privilege. It's a state that everyone can achieve because everyone is a child of the same Father, made of the same essence. This power is not something you have to conquer. It is something that already exists within you. It's like an underground river that flows all the time, even if you don't see it. When you open up to this truth and begin to live in harmony with it, you realize that the power that created the universe is the same power that is within your reach. There is no limit to what can be transformed when you choose to act upon this connection. To access this awareness, you must cultivate something that seems so simple, but that many people forget: inner stillness. In silence, you listen to the voice that doesn't speak of fear, but of trust, that doesn't accuse, but guides, that doesn't divide, but unites. When you act on this voice, your decisions begin to reflect more love, more compassion, and more truth. This changes not only the way you live, but also the way the world responds to you. This transformation doesn't happen magically or suddenly. It's a process of awakening, one step at a time. But with every small gesture, a kind word, an act of forgiveness, a choice for peace. You strengthen that connection. And in time, Christ consciousness will not only be something you seek, but something you live and manifest in everything you do. When you realize that this power is within you, everything begins to take on new meaning. Your challenges become opportunities to grow, and your pain becomes doors to love. And as you walk this journey, something even deeper begins to reveal itself. My love, what would life be without love? Not the fleeting love that depends on circumstances or what the other person does for you, but the true love that comes from the heart and expects nothing in return. This is the love that transforms, that heals, that unites. And it's also what many still find difficult to live fully. As I walked among you, I saw how relationships were often marked by conditions and expectations. "I'll love you if" has been the basis of so many relationships. But true love doesn't impose conditions. It doesn't burden the other person. It doesn't try to be fulfilled by something external. It just is. It is a living force, a reflection of the divine energy that sustains all that exists. This love begins with you. You can't give another person what you haven't found within yourself. People often look to others for what they feel is missing in themselves: approval, security, worth. But the truth is, you already have it all, because the source of love is within you. When you discover this, your relationships stop being a search and become a real exchange. This doesn't mean it will always be easy. Relating to others is one of the greatest challenges because each person brings their own pain and fear. But when you choose to see the other person through the eyes of love, rather than the eyes of ego, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see beyond the flaws, beyond the differences, beyond the wounds. And in doing so, you give the other person permission to do the same for you. This truth about love is not just for the big moments, but for everyday life. It's in the small choices: a kind word, a gesture of patience, the forgiveness you give even when it seems difficult. Each act of love is like a seed that grows and transforms not only your heart, but also the world around you. And as you live this love, you realize something even deeper. It not only connects you to others, it brings you closer to something much greater, something beyond what the eye can see. For love is ultimately the path to all that is true. And that path leads you to a discovery that goes far beyond what you can imagine. There are times when loneliness seems to weigh you down, as if no one understands what you are feeling, or as if the world is too far away. I know what it's like to look around and feel like you're walking alone. But my dear, I want you to know something profoundly true. You have never been, nor will you ever be, truly alone. The power that gives life to all that exists is closer to you than the air you breathe. This presence is not just an idea, but a living reality that sustains you in every moment. Even when your heart feels empty or your mind is full of doubt, this divine energy is there, waiting to be recognized. It doesn't require that you be perfect, only that you allow it to reach you. During my time on Earth, I saw how many people felt abandoned, especially in times of difficulty. But what I discovered and what I share with you is that loneliness is an illusion created by the ego. The ego makes us believe that we are separate, that we are isolated, but that is not true. You are always connected because you are part of something much greater. And when you realize that connection, you feel a comfort that nothing in the world can offer. This divine presence doesn't just manifest in grand moments. It's in the little things, in the stillness of a sunrise, in the breeze that touches your face, in someone's unexpected smile. It's in the depths of your heart, in the space where peace and love reside. You just have to stop and listen, even for a moment. When you do, you realize that you have never been alone, even in the darkest of nights. And more than that, you are a reflection of that presence to others. Each time you offer a word of support, a look of compassion, or an act of kindness, you become the channel through which this divine connection manifests. In this way, not only do you feel less alone, but you help others to feel the same. This is the wonder of shared love. So in those moments when the weight seems too great, remember that there is a power that sustains you, that never lets you down. And in recognizing this, you make room for something even more transformative. For understanding that you are never alone is only the beginning of a much greater discovery. Have you ever wondered what it really means to be called a child of God? Maybe you've heard those words so many times that they've lost their impact or become something distant, almost unattainable. But allow me to tell you this truth clearly and personally. Being a child of God is not a title reserved for a few, but the deepest reality of who you are. As I walked among you, I saw how many felt small, unworthy, or separated from the divine. It was as if they believed that God was somewhere far away, watching from a distance. But what I've always wanted to show you is that this distance is an illusion. You are not separate from God. You are an extension of that creative power that is pure, unconditional love. Being a child of God means that you carry within you the same essence that created everything that exists. That's why you have the power to create, to transform your reality, to heal the wounds of the heart. Not because you have to prove anything or deserve this love, but because it is already yours by right. You were created to live fully, to experience joy, to reflect the divine light in all that you do. This truth, however, is often overshadowed by the ego, which makes us believe that we are just bodies, just people, limited by circumstances. But I say you are much more than that. There is a power within you that is greater than any difficulty, a power that can overcome any fear. When you reconnect with this truth, you realize that there is nothing that can separate you from the love of the Father. This realization changes not only the way you see yourself, but also the way you see others. Every person you meet is also a reflection of the same divine essence. This changes everything. Instead of seeing differences, you begin to see oneness. Instead of judging, you choose to love. And in doing so, you fully experience what it means to be a child of God. This understanding is the beginning of something greater. As you accept your true nature, you begin to live in a way that reflects the peace, love, and light that have always been within you. And that leads you to a new question. What can you do with this power, with this truth that you now know? My dear, through everything we've talked about, you may have realized that the life you are living today is a reflection of what is within you. Your thoughts, your beliefs, and what you carry in your heart shape the world around you. But what if I told you that you have the power to change all that? That the reality you want is within your reach, just waiting for you to consciously create it? When I was among you, I saw how many of you felt like victims of circumstance, believing that your lives were out of your control. But what I have always wanted to show you is that you have a creative force within you, the same force that gives life to the universe. This power is not something external. It is in your thoughts, your words, and most importantly, in your choices. Creating the reality you want begins with clarity about what really matters. Too often people get lost in fleeting desires, in pursuits that don't reflect what the heart truly desires. But when you connect with the love and peace that is your essence, you realize that you don't have to chase after what is superficial. From this state of inner abundance, your intentions gain strength and purpose. Conscious creation requires belief and action. It's not enough to believe. You must align your thoughts and attitudes with what you want. If you want peace, sow it with your words. If you want prosperity, begin to act with gratitude and generosity. Everything you give to the world will be returned to you multiplied. That is one of the greatest truths of existence. And when you begin to live this way, you'll find that changes occur not only around you, but also within you. Life becomes easier, opportunities appear in unexpected ways, and even challenges become lessons. Because creating the reality you want isn't just about changing what's outside, it's about changing who you are inside. There is no end to this path, for there is always something new to discover, something new to create. But by following it, you not only transform your life, you inspire others to do the same. And so, together, we create a world that reflects more love, more light, and more truth. Now I ask you, what will you begin to create today? For the power is in your hands. You are not small, separate, or incapable. Within you is the same power that holds the stars, the same love that gave birth to all that exists. What I have shared here today are not just words, but a reminder of who you truly are. A living expression of the divine, capable of transforming your life and touching the world around you with light and truth. Now is the time to awaken, to trust, to act. Let go of the burdens that don't belong to you. Embrace the love that is already within you, and allow your light to shine. For the world needs exactly what you have to offer.